Okay, so let's get right into it. A single sentence from a world leader recently sent, well, pretty much shockwaves across the entire internet. It was raw, it was provocative, and honestly, at first glance, it sounded completely blasphemous. In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what was said, why it caused such a massive uproar, and the one crucial piece of context that, kind of changes everything.
And there it is. That's the quote that started it all. You heard it right. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu apparently comparing Jesus Christ, the central figure of Christianity, to Genghis Khan, the, famously ruthless conqueror. It is a really shocking comparison, and when you just see it on its own, it sounds absolutely unbelievable.
So this is the question that just immediately exploded online. Was this a deliberate insult? Maybe a slip of the tongue? Or was there something else going on entirely? Let's unpack this whole story layer by layer and find out. To really get the firestorm, we first have to understand the environment this all happened in. This comment didn't just appear out of thin air. It landed in what was already a pretty tense situation. You see, sensitivities were already incredibly high, especially when it came to holy sites in Jerusalem. Some recent security events had led to a few highly controversial decisions, which basically primed the public for a really strong reaction to, well, anything touching on faith and respect. So specifically, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which, is where Christian tradition holds that Christ was crucified and resurrected, was actually closed during Holy Week. The reason given was security concerns, and we're talking about missiles literally striking near these ancient walls. Now, to be fair, sources also point out that major Jewish and Muslim sites like the Western Wall and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, they were closed for similar reasons. But for many, the perception was a slight against Christians, and that really set the stage for what came next.
Okay, so with all that context in mind, when the quote about Jesus and Genghis Khan finally dropped, the internet reaction was immediate, and it was absolutely furious. And this was pretty much the sentiment for a lot of people. The comment wasn't just seen as offensive, but as a statement of pure evil, equating the Prince of Peace with a mass-murdering conqueror. The condemnation was just so swift and so severe. For a lot of believers, the reaction was theological. It was this firm rejection of the statement, reasserting their belief in Christ's ultimate authority over every earthly power, past and present. It was really seen as a direct challenge to the very foundations of their faith.
And then, of course, there were the warnings. Many people interpreted the quote as this act of hubris, a blasphemous claim of superiority that they believed would inevitably lead to a downfall. The anger was palpable, and it really looked like a major international incident was brewing.
So that's the story that went viral, an inflammatory, blasphemous statement that sparked global outrage. But, as with so many things that just explode online, there was a crucial piece of the puzzle missing. And this is where we kind of have to hit pause and ask ourselves, was that what was really being said? As the backlash grew and grew, a totally different narrative started to emerge, and this one hinged on where the words originally came from.
That's right. Those words, Jesus Christ has no advantage over Genghis Khan, they weren't Netanyahu's own. He was quoting someone else entirely, an American historian and philosopher. He was quoting a man named Will Durant, a Pulitzer Prize-winning author famous for his huge, comprehensive work on world history. So Durant wasn't some fringe figure. We're talking about a deeply respected academic who spent his entire life studying the rise and fall of civilizations. And here is the full context. Durant wasn't saying Genghis Khan was better than Christ. No way. He was making a cold, hard observation about history, that history, as a force of nature, is amoral. It doesn't pick sides based on our ideas of good and evil. In the brutal math of survival, might often makes right. And a morally superior idea? Well, that doesn't guarantee victory. So once this context came to light, Netanyahu's office moved pretty quickly to clarify the prime minister's intent and, try to stop this viral misunderstanding from spreading even further. All right, let's break this down. On one side, you have the initial interpretation, a blasphemous attack. But the intended meaning was something totally different. It was a grim observation on how history works, that sometimes might makes right. It wasn't about evil being better than good, but a really stark warning that a morally superior civilization still needs the strength to defend itself against a ruthless enemy. And this was the official clarification.
Netanyahu stated directly that he was not denigrating Jesus, but that he was citing Durant to make a point about geopolitics, that in a dangerous world, good intentions and moral superiority just aren't enough. You also have to have the power to defend yourself, or you risk being completely overrun by people who do not share your values. This entire firestorm, which was basically born from a misunderstood quote, it actually brings up a much deeper, timeless debate about the nature of power, of faith, and how history is really shaped. Now, what's really interesting here is the counterpoint from another famous conqueror, Napoleon Bonaparte. He actually reflected that while he and others built these huge empires on force, which all crumbled, Christ built an empire on love that has lasted for thousands of years. Napoleon saw a different kind of power, one that asks for the human heart and inspires a kind of devotion that brute force never, ever could. And this is really where the whole controversy lands us. It all boils down to this fundamental tension. On one side, you have the historical reality that Durant was talking about, where power and survival often crush morality. But on the other, you have the reality Napoleon was talking about, where an empire built on love has actually outlasted every single empire built on force. And that leaves us with this final thought. The debate isn't really about whether evil can have temporary victories. I mean, history shows us over and over that it can. The much deeper question, the one this whole incident forces us to confront, is what happens to you in that fight? To win the battle, what part of your soul do you risk losing? It's a question that goes so far beyond a single quote, and it really touches the heart of the human struggle itself.